Did you know that only 30% of SAP's customers are happy with the software vendor? I'm going to talk about why that is here today. My name is Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys, including their SAP implementations. And when we're helping clients through digital transfer, okay, I got to do that again. I was like on the other video still. Yeah. Okay. My name is Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys, including their SAP implementations. And on my YouTube channel, I've put out a lot of content around SAP and SAP lessons learned and case studies, why people are struggling with their S/4HANA implementations, and even just some of the more strategic aspects of what SAP is doing with a roadmap. And so what I decided to do is I wanted to ask AI to analyze all the comments I've received on all of my social media channels, and primarily focused on my YouTube channel and my TikTok channel, because I get a lot of feedback on those two outlets. People that comment both positively and negatively about SAP and S/4HANA and their experiences with the product. So I asked AI just to summarize for me, what are people saying? What is the percentage approval rating or the disapproval rating for SAP and S/4HANA? And what are some of the reasons why that is? And what I found in the study, or this analysis that AI did for me, is that only 30% of people that had commented on either of my channels are saying anything positive about SAP. Another 30% spoke negatively about SAP, and then the remaining 40% were neutral between the two. And what's interesting is, even though this is really a net approval score of 0, because you have 30% positive, 30% negative, 40% neutral, it's actually one of the higher positive ratings of all the software vendors in the market. And I'll make a future video on that, comparing SAP to other vendors. So even though 30% of people speaking positively about SAP seems low, it's actually higher than a lot of software vendors out there. But what I want to do today is talk about what are the reasons driving that. What did AI pick up on all the themes and conversations on my YouTube and TikTok channels, so we can understand why people have such negative views of SAP. Now, if you're embarking on an S/4HANA journey and you'd like to learn more about how to make your S/4HANA project successful, I encourage you to read our Guide to Successful S/4HANA Implementations. You can find that by scanning the QR code right here, or go to the links below. And in that guide, we share a tech-agnostic, independent, objective view of what it takes to be successful in your S/4HANA implementations. Now, if you're not sure if you're going to embark on an SAP journey and you're still trying to figure out what your digital strategy looks like, another resource you might want to go to is our 2025 Digital Transformation Report. It's a report we publish each year, talks about trends in the industry, best practices and lessons learned, as well as independent reviews and rankings of different software vendors in the industry. You can read that white paper by scanning the QR code or going to the links below. The first theme that AI picked up on in my YouTube and TikTok channel comments is the fact that SAP and S/4HANA in particular has high costs. There's a lot of high costs and complexity that go along with the product, which may not sound super surprising for those of you that have been doing this for a while, but a lot of organizations are really struggling to find the resources and the justification to pay for that. And part of what's driving this too is that people recognize that S/4HANA is a complete re-implementation. It's not a simple upgrade. It's not a lift and shift, and they know it's going to be more expensive and costly and risky than they might otherwise think, and they're having trouble justifying why they would spend that much time and money and heartache and risk on the projects. So high costs of S/4HANA relative to other ERP vendors is one of the big things that people pointed out that leads to this 30% approval rating. Another thing that AI picked up on in my YouTube and TikTok channel comments related to this 30% approval rating for SAP is the forced migration issue. And in my opinion, this is the number one strategic problem that SAP has. I think they have a PR problem. I think they have a strategic problem as it relates to essentially forcing their customers to migrate to S/4HANA by 2030. And if they don't, they'll lose support and maintenance unless they want to go to a third party, which is also a very viable option that SAP may not tell you about. But regardless, this whole forced migration is causing SAP to lose a lot of goodwill in the industry, and it's causing a lot of people to get really irritated and frustrated with SAP, so much so that a lot of legacy customers that we talk to are actually questioning their decision to be on SAP and are second guessing that decision and evaluating other options. And maybe SAP knows this, maybe that's a risk they're willing to take. They know they might lose some customers, but maybe they think they'll net even more positivity in terms of financial results by the customers that do fall for that gambit. But the point here is that customers are not happy about the forced migration that SAP is imposing on them. And what I would consider the most interesting thing that AI picked up on in the threads of comments on my YouTube and TikTok channels is the fact that there's some controversy over cloud versus on-prem S4HANA. There's a lot of confusion around it. What's the real value of moving to cloud S4HANA versus on-prem S4HANA? And there seems to be a pretty strong preference towards on-premise, which is really interesting. I wouldn't have expected that necessarily, even though I understand why a lot of organizations want to stay on-prem. There's a lot of flexibility that goes along with that. There's a certain amount of control and comfort and flexibility that goes along with that. But I was surprised to hear that a lot of people don't really recognize the value or the difference with cloud S4HANA versus on-prem, with the exception of Fiori. A lot of people commented on how Fiori seems to be the big difference between S4HANA cloud versus on-prem. But in terms of real business value and looking beyond that, there wasn't a really good justification or really good understanding of what the differences might be. Now, of course, I know this isn't true. There are some things that SAP is investing in only in the cloud version of S4HANA, but that's not yet apparent to customers, and maybe it won't be for a few more years. Customers also commented on the high cost of cloud S4HANA, particularly as it relates to the RISE program. And we get calls all the time about this whole RISE thing that SAP is doing, trying to get people to commit to RISE in exchange for potentially extending their support beyond 2030 for their old SAP technology. But people are recognizing this is a pretty expensive proposition. They might have to double pay for a while. They're paying for RISE and paying to support and maintain their old legacy system. And it's in some ways a brilliant marketing and sales strategy because they're convincing customers to pay twice for the same software they've always had, with the dream of potentially having S4HANA within their operation someday in the future. I'm not saying it's a good thing because I don't think it's a good thing, but it's brilliant sales and marketing and it's working to some degree, but a lot of people are concerned about the cost associated with S4HANA migrations. And then finally, people are recognizing that whether they go through a cloud or an on-prem implementation of S4HANA, they recognize that it's a complete re-implementation, it's very complex, it's going to be painful to the operations, and it's going to be painful to migrate that data. So these are just a few of the reasons why AI identified the confusion between cloud and on-prem S4HANA as one of the key drivers to this low 30% approval rating for SAP. Now I'm going to add my own observation to the mix here. This is not what AI told me. The previous things I talked about in this video were all related to what AI analyzed on my channels in the comments fields for my YouTube and TikTok channels. Those were the things that customers were commenting on my channels about. This is my own observation that did not show up in the AI analysis, and that is that I think SAP is completely out of touch with its customers. And I think this will ultimately lead to the downfall of SAP in the long term. I think about companies like Commodore 64, BlackBerry, Blockbuster Video, and someday I just have this feeling that SAP is going to be on that list. I think they're going to be obsolete, and I think the hubris and the arrogance that they have with trying to dominate and force their customers a certain direction just because they're SAP and they can, I think that's going to haunt them in the long term. It might look good for them right now. It's driving their stock value higher, their overall valuation of the company higher. They're profitable and they're doing great as a company right now. But I've been around long enough to know that the incumbents that are at the top don't stay there very long. And I think this could be the beginning of the end for SAP. But either way, even if I'm wrong on that, I do think SAP is out of touch with their customers. I don't think they understand the pain they're putting their customers through. I don't think they understand the chaos and confusion that they're causing in the marketplace. And I also don't think they understand that the implementation of their software is putting these big organizations at risk. And as more and more of these projects fail and have problems during the implementations, they're going to start to hear more about it and they're going to start to feel the pain of their strategic decisions that they're making right now. But I'm curious to hear from you. What do you think about SAP as a company, as a product with S4HANA? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you like? What don't you like? I'd love to hear your comments below. I'd love to keep this conversation going. I'd love to learn from you. So please drop your comments in the fields below. And if you'd like to learn more, be sure to download our Guide to S4HANA Implementations. It'll teach you everything you need to know to be successful in your project, and it'll make sure you get started on the right foot. And it's also a very tech-agnostic, objective view and a realistic view of how to be successful in your SAP projects. So be sure to download that book by scanning the QR code right here or go to the links below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day. happy with SAP right now? Throughout the world with their for those of you that have been doing this for a while, but in this subset of people that are, be sure to read that by scanning the QR code below. Oh my gosh, I may never finish this video.